friend
Corey?
Corey Haynes. What's going on, Corey?
What's up? How you doing?
I'm just living the dream, man.
Just living the
Just living the dream. Hey guys, another episode. Today we're going to be talking about college. Thank you for listening. Before we jump into our college experiences, wanted to say a few business kind of items. First was, if you haven't heard already, if you want to find a way to support us, you can do that through Patreon.
Yeah.
And as of now, we have one supporter. Shout out to Dan Dealing.
Shout out to Dan.
Yeah, he's really helping us out, coming through. So,
Yeah.
If you guys don't know, Patreon basically is a platform for creatives such as ourselves for a way for us to either make a living or recoup some of the costs of what we do. So, me and Corey we've said before, but our goal and intention is to not monetize and make money off of Cultivate and Keep. That may come in the future, but that's not the goal. But it would be nice to try to, as much as we can, recoup some of the costs. And so we've shared before, but roughly costs around $200 a month to run this. And so if you guys feel compelled and want to support us, you can do that through visiting Cultivate and Keep /Patreon or /support, and then you'll be directed to Patreon.
Yeah.
From there.
Yeah. So we set up a goal for $200 that would cover all the costs, and in exchange, you get access to all of our bonus episodes, exclusive episodes. So we do like life updates. We'll be doing some special Q&A episodes. We do like book reviews and other cool stuff on there. So if you do feel so compelled, there's a couple tiers. The $5 tier will get you access to the bonus episodes. Otherwise, you can drop in $1 and we will give you a high five and a shout out on the podcast.
But you don't want the $5 one. You really want the $25.
You want the $25.
Yeah, you want to go big,
Love it. Also, super quick housekeeping item. We're still building out our /favorites page. So this page is going to be a really great way for everyone to just have like a kind of master resource that you can go to find great books, great apps, websites, products that we love, other podcasts that are great, just a whole slew of things. We're going to keep adding to the list. Nonprofits and ministries to support. So if you have any suggestions, any of your favorite resources, email us. Find us on social media. You can DM us. They're open, and send it to us. But you can also find it's coming along pretty nice. So it's cultivateandkeep.com/favorites to find it there, and you can check it out and tell us what you think.
Cool. Want to jump in?
Let's do it.
Why don't you handle the first part, and
Okay.
we'll start with
So we're talking about college, and this is obviously a huge topic to cover. I also wanted to make a disclaimer that these are our biased opinions. So we don't claim to be like the educational institutional prophets in any way, and we're not here to bash on college. We're also not here to necessarily condone college. This is a super controversial and even offensive topic in a lot of ways. So I just want to make that disclaimer that in no way are we claiming to know 100% of the truth or to prophetically kind of tell you what to do over your life.
Let's say that with every topic from now on. We've said that before, but it's like
it's true.
We aren't. Well, I think with any podcast, that's what I like about them. It's really most of the time, I think, people just discussing something and kind of like a free flow, talking it out. So
we're going to do our best to let the Lord speak through us. But in a lot of ways and kind of life experiences, this is our biased opinions. And so have grace with us. But we wanted to talk about college because we're both recent college grads.
Woo!
It's also, hey, we're free. But it's also just a topic that's top of mind for a lot of men.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, whether you're graduating high school, whether you're in college right now, whether you're working, you want to go back to school, maybe to get change careers or whatever it is. It's sort of top of mind for a lot of people. So we want to kind of dive into what college is for, how to be successful in college, maybe some ways and reasons why you might not want to college and what you should do instead. So anyways, I think, why don't we just start with kind of our experiences and then we can go into maybe some of the opinions that we have.
Yeah. So I guess I'll start. So my
keep it pretty brief.
Yeah, a couple minutes.
Nothing special about our experiences.
My experience was a little different than like traditional college. I mean, most people either go to like a junior college community, for a couple years, and then hopefully a couple years, and then move on to a university and get a degree, right? Typically while working a part-time job or whatever you can do. Or others obviously go to a campus. So I didn't like either of those options. I've always never liked the classroom setting. I've always kind of felt like I like to learn at my own pace and typically like quickly. Like I like to just figure things out and not kind of like read every sentence. Like I skim most of it and just do my research and figure it out. Basically,
Actually, I don't know of a single person who would say that they prefer the classroom setting.
Really,
to be honest,
I feel like more and more people I run into would say that. Personally,
really,
yeah.
Well, I feel like you have like the teacher's pet kind of person where they're like all about it in the front row, raising their hand. They're doing all the homework. They're studying all the notes. But I feel like 99%.
Well, I think people say they like the interaction and like community and people.
Okay, I could see that.
I don't like that. I'm like, don't talk to me.
Yeah.
Let's get this done. And anyway. That being said, I didn't want to go to either of those forums, and so the college I did was a little different. I actually tested out of most of my classes, and so it's called CLEP exams is one of the forms. There's a few different types, but that's like the main one. They're called CLEP exams, and so basically what that looks like is you obviously you identify the classes you need to take for the credits you need to earn, and then when you're ready to do it, you go online, you buy the books that you need, and you basically just read and study, and whenever you're ready, you schedule a time to go into a college campus and you take the exam that you need. They're official exams. There's like certain like process you have to follow to do it all. But I mean, it's pretty simple. So very unstructured though, and there's no syllabus, there's no homework, no papers. You literally buy a book. Typically, they're like 300 to 400 pages. You just read it all through. There's typically would be like 3 practice exams at the end, and then whenever you felt ready, you would go take a test. And so,
and you sort of have like a counselor that's like helping you a little bit, but it's not very like
So
what
I did, CLEP exams are very popular. Like if you whatever college you go to, like they have those available. You have to ask about it. I actually went through a program that like helps you do the majority of your college through CLEP exams. The program is called Lumera Education, and so they take you. So let's say you need 120 credits to graduate. You can do up to 90 credits through this type of stuff. That's what I did, and
that's crazy.
You have like they call him a coach, and that's what I had. So I would have a once every 2 weeks we had a call, and we would just basically make sure I'm on track, like kind of go through stuff. And he's the one that kind of helps you put together your like what's it called, like degree plan basically.
Yeah.
And kind of you follow that with him. So it's not like free for all. You have someone guiding you. But what is like really different is the structure. I mean, it's really it was online in the sense that I did it whenever I wanted and kind of at my convenience. But the actual exams were I couldn't do this from home. So exams I went and did like at like the library or like the testing center at SDSU. So I did that for most of my school while or I should say all of my school while I worked full time. And then the last like year basically I transferred to Thomas Edison State University and went like traditional online school. So I think I had like at that point I think 6 classes left and had a professor and yeah, that was kind of my experience.
And how long did it take you?
Just over 4 years, like 4.5 years.
4.5.
Yeah,
right.
I started a little bit late. A few things I would have done differently. So because it was online, I didn't take any breaks. Like most college, you have you have your Thanksgiving break or spring break or summer break. I didn't have any of that, and so I regret that though because what happened was kind of burnout. Like you probably remember, I would go on like these streaks of like I'm not gonna talk to anyone. I'm just gonna go hard for like a month, and I would knock out like 12 credits, and then I would like drag out like a math class for like 4 months. I did that a lot, and so
then you just like completely waste all that productivity because then.
So I like looking back at it, I was like, shoot, like I definitely should have done it differently. But my goal was to finish in 4 years, and I pretty much did. So yeah.
And how many tests did you take? Like a month, or
That's a great question. My goal was to do. Let's see. My goal was to do, I think, like
on average, because
about 2 a month. So you have these coaches, right? So the coach I had, he had 50 other students that he managed, and then at the program, I think there was like 30 of these coaches, and so it's like a decent size program. And he told me that he didn't at the time, at least, he didn't have any other student that worked a full-time job like I did and then moved at my pace. And so I moved pretty quick. I would skim most of those books, and then I just got lucky, honestly. They were pass or fail. I didn't get lucky, but I've always been a good test taker. I never liked papers, but I was good at taking tests, always from like a young age. But the tests were pass or fail. And so there's no
there
grade.
were a few that I feel like you just...
And it was weird. It's called a scaled score is how it worked. And so some questions counted more than others. Some didn't even count at all. I mean, it was like a weird system they used. I forget how it works. Anyway, I had so I think the most tests you had to get a scaled score of like 60 or higher or 50 or higher, which is an equivalent to a C+, basically, kind of how they gauge it.
A pass, yeah.
I had multiple where it was like 61 out of 60 or like, multiple like on the dot.
I remember you sending me screenshots of like,
yeah.
dude, I just, like I went down to the very last second.
Yeah, so your time, this is a funny one. So I had one that was 120 questions in 90 minutes.
Good Lord.
And it was like a literature one. And so
it's basically like taking the SATs
dude, it was
every other week.
It was,
right?
And it wasn't, that's the thing. So most people like almost make fun of me for my college choice. Oh, it wasn't real. No, it was freaking hard. That's what bothers me. Like, it was a really hard form of college.
Yeah.
Like,
it's almost harder than...
Yeah, and like, because compared to my online classes that were cake, the last 6 I had for online, dude, they were like at the university, they're so easy. Like, you just write a paper or two and do your post.
It's like global business 101, and you're like, come on.
Like, so...
Except for those accounting classes. I remember those. Yeah. You're like, please come over.
Right. But I had multiple that were, anyway, like down to the wire. I had one that was 120 questions in 90 minutes, and it was like a literature exam. And so those questions were more than like, you would read like a page, dude, and have to answer. And that one, at one point, I remember, I think there was like 20 seconds left and I had 10 questions.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, I just clicked random. I had to. And I passed that one by 1 point. And I was like,
dang.
Bless you, Lord. Thank you. Like, thank you so much. Because I did want to say 2 points about my experience. Actually, so a few things. When I finished, I felt like, I think I told you this, but I wanted to like share my thoughts, and I felt like unresolved, and so I wrote a blog.
A little anticlimactic in some ways.
Yeah,
like you didn't get to walk.
Yeah,
no one kind of.
I could have. I
didn't
want because the campus was in New Jersey. I didn't want to like go all the way out there for a
kind of hokey.
So yeah, it kind of felt anticlimactic. So I wrote a blog and kind of put my thoughts out, which at that time was the first one I've ever done, and I felt weird about it. But you know what? I want to like document how I feel and put it out there to share. And so I wrote it. And it's on Medium if you want to look it up. But a few things I shared was, and we'll get into this later, but if I wanted to make a point that the very first exam I ever took, I failed. And then the very last one I took, I failed too.
Interesting.
Which I thought was really weird. And so, and again, in high school, I never failed like really any tests. Like I was a good student. But I was like really intimidated by college. So for me, I don't know what it's for most people, most kids, but my parents didn't help me like at all. There was no like structure. They wanted me to go, but there was no like, I kind of assumed my parents would help a little bit like with the process of like, hey, go to this college, or hey, apply here. Like there was none of that. It was like, I had to do it all, which surprised me. I feel like that's how it should be. But at the time it surprised me. And so that being said, I was really like nervous going this route of college, like, cause it was super unfamiliar.
Well, it's a risk.
And it wasn't like normal. And so my first test, it took me about 4 months to muster up the courage to go take the exam. And this was like a general ed, like basic, like I think it was like a writing one. I can't remember what it was. It wasn't that hard. But after I finally like did it, I failed, and I was like, dude, like so discouraged. And so I ended up like starting like a little bit later, like I told you. So I failed it, and I literally thought, dude, I'm not gonna like, screw this. I'm not even gonna like waste my time with college. And I decided, you know what, I'm gonna like do it. I'm gonna finish it out. And so I like decided that no matter what, I was gonna finish. And so sure enough, like passed the next one, and I ended up passing all of them until my very last like CLEP exam before I went to the university. I failed that one too, and it was a really like hard exam. Like it was one of the hardest you could take. They told me, so I knew like he told me like the pass rate was pretty low, so I knew like I probably would fail it. But I was just bummed that I did. I had a goal to finish in 2017. And this caused me to finish like January 5th of 2018. So like a few days late, which is not a big deal. Right. But I remember being like so bummed, like, man, like, but I think that was like, a funny lesson of like finishing failing my first and my last, because I think one of the hardest things in life would be to start and to finish something. And so I think it's funny how that played out. And it was a cool lesson, like deciding to finish it through like I did. But kind of sucked, like my ego, my pride, like
Right.
failing at the end. But
Keep you in check.
it was like interesting how that happened. I'm kind
Yeah.
of glad I did because it kind of
Huh.
taught me a little lesson. So,
Yeah, totally.
but that was like my experience in a nutshell. I mean,
And you did it all while working full time,
well, yes,
which has always been very impressive to me. So my experience is a little more, I guess, traditional in a lot of ways. I'm trying to think back because, so I did a little test run of this topic at my small group. Shout out to the small group boys. They're kind of my guinea pigs for a lot of topics. Not in a good way. You know, we have great conversations. But I was trying to remember why I'm pretty sure that I missed all the deadlines for the college applications. And I think sort of a little bit like you said, like it's such a big, such a big decision, but like everyone expects you to kind of like know and like to be able to do it by yourself. But like you've never done it before, you don't know what to do. It's a very like specific and nuanced process. So I'm pretty sure that I missed all the deadlines. I wanted to originally go to SDSU, ended up going to Grossmont for 2 years. At Grossmont, you know, it's a good school in a lot of respects. I actually ended up getting paid to go there because I qualified for a lot of financial aid, and then I also received some grant money. I mean, when I say I got paid like paid like $400 a semester,
which
you
is
know
not
what I mean?
bad in college.
Okay, yeah, in college you're
Right?
like,
You're
dude,
like,
I am
"Oh,
rolling
I'm
in the money.
balling."
Yeah, I'm balling.
You want lunch, dinner on me, like
Yeah.
let's go.
And then it's gone in like a week.
Yeah.
But so when I met with my counselor, he was like, okay, cool. You know, you want to go into finance or accounting? You know, here's what I recommend. And I told him, well, I'm actually thinking like I want to get an associate's degree. And so we looked at the options, and I could get an associate's degree in like financial planning or something like that. And it was like, I don't know, kind of a little like I don't know, a mini financial planning degree or something. And so he's okay, you take this class, take that class. Well, for the first year, I think I took like 20 units maybe or something like that. Maybe even less. Yeah, for like the first 2 semesters. And I was kind of just chugging along. You know, you get your first jobs, and you're kind of just like figuring out this whole like life thing. Like, got my first car. I'm driving finally. You know, you're managing money. I was like totally broke the whole time. The second year going into it, sat down with my counselor again, and I was like, okay, well, you know, what classes do I need to take? Am I still on track? He's like, no, well, it's probably going to take you about 3 years, you know, to be able to transfer out with all the units that you need. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, I took the classes that you said I should take. Mm-hmm. And he's like, no, well, you know, that was like on a 3-year plan. And it's like, I didn't know, like, I'm on a 2-year plan, not what are you talking about, a 3-year plan? So anyways, I ended up taking 21 units that my sophomore semester, first semester, and then the second semester I took 24 units, just so I could graduate,
That's
or
a lot.
just so I could transfer in time with the associate's degree. Which, looking back, and I also ended up taking like these dumb elective classes that I didn't need to. Anyways, it wasn't like the best experience. And then I was going to transfer to SDSU. I felt the Lord calling me to reconsider SDC, San Diego Christian College. And I'm really glad that worked out. It was through a friend, kind of like sparked the idea, and then ended up applying for a scholarship there called the Dr. Henry Morris Leadership Scholarship. And basically that paid for all of it. So I got to go to a private Christian college for free. I think
typically like what, 35,000 a year, right?
Yeah,
It's
I think it came out to about 33 a year.
That's so crazy.
Yeah. So, and then for 2 years, you know, went to SDC, got my degree in business marketing, and graduated on time. You know, had a great time there, got good grades, finished the way that I wanted to, but again, so one of the things that I wanted to touch on was if I could go back. I mean, there's hindsight's 2020. There's always things you look back and like, I wish I would have done that differently. I didn't even know that if you go to a junior college, you lose your freshman scholarship. So all universities offer like the scholarship that they offer you. That's like, hey, you know, will you qualify for, you know, for this grades for, you know, 50% of your tuition, whatever. Well, that's a freshman rate. So once you take a college class at another university as a freshman, then you're automatically disqualified for that freshman rate ever again. So I went to Grossmont, and then I tried to transfer to SDSU, and then didn't qualify for anything. And then it was even worse going to SDC at a private college, and not even all of my units ended up transferring, by the way. So I finished.
I feel like you every semester were taking like 20 plus
Dude,
units.
it was
Like I
insane.
remember that.
I transferred out of Grossmont with 80 units, and only 56 of them transferred.
That is insane. That was for me. One of my goals was to never take a class that I don't need.
That was my goal
was
too,
my goal.
but that did not happen in
I
any
achieved
respects.
it, baby.
Yeah.
I took exactly 120.
God, so that was a frustrating thing.
That sucks.
Yeah, so I always tell people, be careful. Like, if I were to go back, I probably would have just tried to pick the right college in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, I think the bulk of what we wanted to talk about was the purpose of college, what we think about college, what we should tell other people about college. And, when you think back at the sort of origins of college, the very first college was basically for rich people. It was liberal arts education and it was like education that no one else could get. So like if you were rich, you wanted to make your kids smart, you sent them to college, and then they learned from professors who were experts in the fields. And then it got institutionalized, and then the government got involved, and then it became kind of democratized in a lot of ways. And so now this sort of idea of education isn't even about education. Now it's more of like a facilitator to get a job. So funnily enough, when I asked my small group kids this last Monday, who are all seniors in high school, what's the purpose of college? Why do you go to college? They all said to get a good job. It's not about the education at all in any respects.
Yeah.
And if you're in college, you know that too, because half the classes that you take in general ed are classes that you've already taken in high school. Even the classes in high school are classes that you've already taken in middle school, and then you've already taken.
It's all a joke, is what you're saying.
A little bit. I want to be careful because there's a lot of great professors. There are a lot of great colleges, but so you have to be careful making these big kind of general statements. But in a lot of respects, I personally feel like college has lost its true purpose and meaning. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think I fully agree. I think from the beginning, I kind of felt that way. Before college, I think for me, so what I was after graduating, kind of thinking, okay, I just did 4.5 years of working pretty hard. Like, why? What did that get me?
Yeah.
Because like it didn't get me the raise I thought, it didn't get me the great job I thought. Like all these things that we think it didn't really deliver. I'm curious what that stat is, but there's some crazy stat, right? Of like X% of people that get a degree don't actually work in that field.
The majority of people now.
It's upper 70-80% at least, I would imagine.
I think it's in like the 60 to 70% range.
So kind of lost my train of thought, but what I think I was saying was so basically for me, when I started school, I was expecting to not really learn from the like book part of it. Does that make sense? Like really expecting, okay, I'm going to learn more like about discipline and good habits and work ethic. That was my expectation. So for me, that's kind of what I got out of it, I guess. Yeah. But I think for a lot of people, that's not what they expect. I think, they think, yes, to get a good job. I think most of the time that doesn't happen. And we don't get the job. I have a good friend of mine. He, really smart dude. Graduated and then after he graduated from college, he had like a full ride scholarship. He was working at Costco for like 3 years, like the food court. That happens more often than not. And so,
more than anyone wants to talk about.
But I agree with you in saying like I think it's very easy nowadays to just want to bash on college. But I think you have a good point of let's be careful, because there are. I think you're right. Respecting professors, but also there are certain universities or colleges that I think offer a lot.
So one of the things, so I just want to say this again as a disclaimer. Obviously, there are the professions and the jobs that you absolutely need a college degree. Like you have the doctors and the dentists and the licensed practitioners and whatever X field that you, or there are certain jobs that, across the board, they all require a degree in the related field. But I think the hard part for me is that, especially when you're in high school and you're a senior and you sit down with a college counselor or you sit down with whoever it is that's helping you out with choosing a college, they usually have like this little booklet and they fold it out and they say, here's all the majors, here are all the jobs that you can get with this major. And it all looks like a very simplified, like formulaic kind of system of like, oh, cool. Well, I go to college, I get this degree, I'm qualified for these jobs. Someone's going to want me. I'll end up in a job that I like with a good pay. And that'll be what I do and work my way up the ranks. But the reality, I think, is that the reality today is not aligned with, basically what I'm trying to say is the college system is not aligned with reality today in a lot of ways, because especially with technology, but just with society in general, things have advanced and changed a lot,
Yep.
and the college system has not. And that's one of my qualms with college is that everyone goes to college to get a good job, but college does not prepare you to get a good job, or they're not incentivized.
I fully agree with that.
They're not incentivized to get you a job. They're there. They have a lot of government money. They have a lot of professors. They have a lot of people they need to pay, and they're there to, quote, educate you and basically check the boxes so you can get that piece of paper.
I think you said this, but so that paired with like basically society changing but college not changing, there are so many jobs you can get now that you really don't need.
You don't at all.
Yeah, you don't need a degree.
Yeah.
And like good, well-paying, flexible like jobs, and so this is interesting how that works.
Well, we're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit, but I did want to mention just a couple of weeks ago, Google, I think it's Google, Facebook, and Apple made an announcement that they no longer require college degrees. I have a prediction that within the next 3 to 5 years, the majority of businesses will not require a college degree. You can mark my words on that. Because if Apple, Google, and Facebook are dropping their requirement, you're going to guess that other businesses are going to follow suit.
It's interesting to me thinking about how most parents probably won't be like either up on that, like in the know, or supportive of that. And so it's just interesting thinking of all these like the generations coming up, like what are they going to do? Are they going to go to college because the family wants them to? And that's kind of what, your older brother Tim did, whatever, what's going to happen. But,
So that's a good segue. The first question that we want to kind of touch on is why go to college? I think you sort of hit on it, but a lot of people go to college by default. That's just what they're supposed to do.
I think for me,
definitely.
Yeah, for sure.
Me included, and you, right? I mean, that you go to college because that's what you're supposed to do. And I've heard that from a lot of other places. But again, I think parents have a lot to do with that. I think social kind of pressure and dynamics have a lot to do with that. I think society and culture has a lot to do with that, because no one talks about not going to college, or the things that you can do outside of college, or even the necessity of college. Maybe it's not a big of a deal as many people think. But I don't know. I mean, again, my whole thing was I'm going to go to college because this is what everyone else is doing. And it's supposed to get me a good job. Like those are the things that I was thinking of.
So I think for me, what sticks out is, especially now with there being so many more opportunities for careers, I think you should not commit to at least 4 years of school if you don't want to do it. I think for me, when I first started, it was in large part because my dad really encouraged me to, but I knew like in my heart, like I don't want to do this. And so having that roadblock of failing that first test was like, okay, I'm not going to do this, right? And so I had to choose for myself, okay, I'm going to finish this through. I think a lot, because as you were talking, like, why go to college and saying by default, I'd be curious on the stat, but I think a good chunk of people like that don't finish, it's high, right? Like,
oh yeah,
I think in large part is because we go by default. We go because it is
because there is no
what's
purpose.
Expected.
Yeah.
I also think answering that question, like, what do I want to do with my life? We don't know, and so for most of us, let's go to college and figure it out, like, or that's what we do in the meantime.
Yeah.
But I think what I find so common is people going to college, racking up debt, working part-time at a coffee shop, and then dropping out of college, and like then what, and that's not like hopefully the majority story, but that's a very common like thing that I see. And so I think that goes away though, is if we can identify like why really go to college. Like for you, what's the reason why you want to go? It's got to be more than your dad wants you to. It got to be more than just the default. And I think again now with like society and jobs changing, like that's probably going to go away, but so far that's been like a big part of what's been happening.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we kind of answer the question with the question, but I feel like the majority of people don't even ask that question to themselves. Why go to college? You just do, again. So maybe the most important thing that you can do for yourself if you're considering college is to ask yourself really and honestly, why am I going to college? And if you can't answer that question, then maybe you need to figure out some stuff before you do.
I think also if you can, I try to detach yourself from, this might sound weird, but detach yourself from kind of like what your friends are doing at that. Because I remember for me, like, I felt weird, like, not actually going away to college. Like, just, staying home, working, and going online was, like, a foreign thing to most people. Everyone wanted to go and, like, go have a college experience. And so I think if you can, because right now you're probably in the stage of where everyone's talking about, SATs and applying. And so if you can, like, I don't want to say detach, but, like, be able to.
You should, really.
Yeah, be able to just kind of be okay with your choice, if that makes sense. That a choice you've thought through and why it's good for you.
Well, that's what's interesting is that no one will question your decision to go to college.
Everyone's going to question why you don't go.
Yeah, but you're going to get the most, and this is something that they talked about on the Minimalist podcast with TK Coleman. Shout out to the Minimalists. But he was talking about how, if you don't go to college, then you get all these questions. Like, I think he actually said so. He was talking about how if you decide to go to college, usually someone makes some sort of announcement on Facebook, or, they post, whatever it's on their hat when they throw their hat up in the air when they graduate high school, and it's all congrats, amazing, excited for you, great stuff, congrats. If you don't go to college, no one celebrates you. And then you get all these hard questions like, well, what if it doesn't work out? And what do you plan on doing for the rest of your life? And how are you going to make this work? And what's your ultimate plan? Yeah. And it's like, the people who are going to college don't have that figured out. And also, like, you don't have to have that figured out if you're not going to college. You need to have some sort of idea and direction, but also maybe that's a good reason why you shouldn't go to college is if you don't have the answers to those questions.
Well, I think that's a good segue to this next part. So one thing we wanted to hit on was kind of what are like some main reasons that how do we get hired for a job? Like, what can we do to make ourselves stick out in that process? And it's funny, everyone in your small group said we are going to college to get a good job.
Right.
I think a degree really all it does, if anything, to get you in the door. And but besides that, it's
a
really
minimum requirement
about the person. A few things we wrote down would be like your experience that you bring. So have you worked in that field or business before? What do you know about that kind of stuff? How can you help the company with where you've come from? Another thing we talked about was simply just proof. Like, what can you show that you can bring to the table? Like, what do you have, and why do you have what it takes to be a good fit for that job? Those first two have nothing to do with school, really, right? No. And then the last one is just
they're like the opposite of school.
Yeah, it's like, well, I mean, you could argue an experience, but even that, I wouldn't. But I mean, the last one was just simply who you are as a person. Like, are you a good fit for this company culture? And so those are some 3 huge reasons, reasons to hire someone. My sister says, or my dad says, if he's interviewing 2 people, and one guy has a college degree, and the other guy doesn't, but it's a better fit, he's gonna take the guy without a degree. And so, like, really, like, I don't know. Again, I don't want to like encourage like don't go to college, but like, I think we have to get out of our heads. We need college for a good job, and I also like the idea of go to college because it's normal. I think that has to kind of go away because, and remember, this is both coming from we both went to college, right? And so we did it, and so. Even after doing it, we're kind of recognizing a few things that should be different,
Right. So we're a little short-sighted because it's not like one of us didn't go to college and then we can talk about our successes in some way. So I want to make that admission there. But also, what's funny too is, we talk about experience and proof and sort of the personal aspects and like if you're a culture fit and kind of who we are as a person. But I remember in my last week in college, I was an intern working for Cordial, the company that I work for currently, and that was my first job out of college. And I told them that I had won the business capstone competition. So it's like this kind of business simulation game. And
yeah, I remember that.
It's sort of a big deal. Like, I worked my butt off and I won. And I remember it was like, awesome, great job. But like...
quiet.
But yeah, it was like no one's like bowing down and worshiping me, like, how much money do you want, like, when can you start, like, so it's hard because especially with the dynamics today, experience and proof, like, can you really prove that you know what you're talking about?
What can you do? I mean, that's kind of what it's about. And I think it's so I don't know, I think it's so competitive now. I think in most jobs, like what you're applying for, there are a lot of people in line that want it, and I think we have so many skilled people now that are capable of a lot, and so you need more than just, hey, I was an intern at this, church or whatever, and I got a college degree, or you need more than that in most cases.
Yeah. Well, I think what it is too is that education is pretty much free, and especially with the advent of the internet,
That's a good, really good point.
blog posts, podcasts, video courses, YouTube.
I mean, you get back to the core. What is college? It's an education. That's what
Right.
it is. But we're talking about and finding it's kind of far from that
But
now.
education really isn't like the determining factor to your ability to get hired.
Well, and what you're saying is like there's so many other forms of education now that
And better
wow,
ones,
wow,
if we're
it kinda
being
just, like,
honest.
hit me like, wow, that's true. That's
Yeah. So like education
better
isn't
for sure.
really the problem. Now it's kind of table stakes.
Mhm.
Now sort of the competitive advantage that you have and the thing that you really should be working towards is how much experience, how much proof,
Yeah.
and who you are as a person that you can show to a
Mhm.
company that you're worthwhile in hiring.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a big one. We're kind of coming up on time here. We want to keep these episodes a little bit more succinct, but so let's see this next section.
Let's go on to what do you think you can learn from college? What are some things that you may experience?
Yeah, go ahead.
So we kind of put a few down, and so I don't think anything we put was educational, but more
That's
just
true.
about.
Oh my gosh.
So here are some things that I kind of thought out.
And again, there are some great things you
of
can
course,
learn in
yeah,
college, but
yeah.
maybe it's not the main thing.
One thing we talked about before was those specific trades that you're doing, or what certain careers that require the education. But I think one thing I think about is like for me, I got like a business admin degree, which is great,
Mhm.
but it's pretty generic. And so I did learn some good stuff in there, but overall, I didn't necessarily need that for where I'm at today.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what we're referring to when we say that.
Yeah.
So for me, I think just the idea of doing something that's hard for a long period of time is good. And I think, especially for men, I think when things get hard, we often want to walk the other way, or we want to think of other solutions, or like, I don't know, like we want to move on to something that's going to be easier. And so I think, in most part, college for most people probably won't be easy. It probably be the majority of it will be hard, and it's going to be long. And so, I think it's good for us as people to go through that. I think through doing that, you learn how to persevere, and you learn how to simply just do what is hard for a long period of time.
Yeah. Actually, that reminds me, when I was a sophomore in college and I was kind of trying to figure out what I wanted to do, and I was thinking I wanted to go into financial planning. I did sort of a reverse interview with a financial planner that we know, and I asked him, what his thoughts were on college, and sort of actually, so he told me like, I can't hire you now. Come back to me when you graduate college. And I asked him why, and he said, well, I want to know that you're willing to do stuff that you don't like.
That's awesome.
And I was like, oh, all right. So
Anthony Saffer?
no,
Oh,
Mike Renlet.
Mike Renlet.
Yeah. And so I was like, touche. I actually
that's really
understand
cool.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really good. And college is a great kind of experience because you have to really commit yourself for 4 years, which is 4 years is a long time. And you have to show that you put in the work.
I honestly think for me that alone was worth it. Like, let's say I
think
didn't
so.
learn a lick of educational stuff.
Right. You can say that you did it.
Yeah, and like I think that's extremely underrated. Like what we're talking about, the idea of doing hard things for like a long period of time, like even when you don't want to. I mean, like think for me, I'm just thinking of like countless like names of friends that I know that something is hard and is on to the next thing, which isn't always bad, but just the idea of doing what is hard for a long time is good, and we should consider that. And college will for sure give you the opportunity.
Yeah, for sure. I think another good part of college that you can learn is meeting people and networking with people, making connections with people. I mean, I think professors are a very underutilized resource, but even the people you meet in classes, like that could be, that person could get you a job, or you could help that person get a job. That person could be the, co-founder of a company that you end up starting, or that person could just be a friend that you have. So in a lot of ways, college is a great way. I mean, naturally, you're 24/7 with people.
Yeah.
So it's inevitable that you're going to meet a lot of great people.
Yeah, I think probably our last point under this section. I think just learning the process of kind of going through college, of applying to finishing to, studying all that. I think just learning how to research things and figure stuff out for yourself is good. And you can find that in other ways, but college forces you to do that. I think that was a great takeaway for me.
Yeah. So we do have some two other questions I do want to touch on because I think they're important. The first one is how to be successful in college. So I have a couple notes here because I think the number one, and unfortunately this is the case, but I think the number one requirement for how to be successful in college actually doesn't have anything to do with college. It's about money. And I think that if you're going to go to college, you have to be financially responsible. I can't tell you how many, people that we've talked to, but also people I see on Twitter who actually today I saw a Twitter status of this guy who started a GoFundMe for himself. He was trying to raise $50,000 to get out of student debt. And he got destroyed on Twitter. Everyone was all, get a second job, get a job, start a business, take Dave Ramsey's course.
That is crazy.
But over and over again, you see so many times that people just have an insane amount of student debt, and especially with the amount of debt that everyone has and just the crazy rates of tuition these days, to go to college, you have to be financially responsible. You can't afford not to be. But second of all, I'll just kind of wrap it up with this point is that to be successful in college, do all the right things, get good grades, take all the right classes, get a great degree, but also be working on things outside of college. So get a great part-time job, intern somewhere, start a side project. Maybe it's like a blog or a podcast, or it's a little mini business that you're trying to start up, or freelancing, consulting.
Like something to show like in your name.
But do something while you're in college so that you can show that you have the experience, and then you can prove it, and that you can kind of show your personality and who you are as a person.
We put this down like practicing time management, but doing those things like forces that to happen. Yeah,
totally. Okay. The last question is, what do you do if you don't go to college? So this is another, we could spend a whole podcast episode on this, but I don't know. Do you want to kind of kick this one off and try to tackle this a little bit?
Yeah, a little bit. Well, I think first and foremost, we didn't put this down, but it just came to my mind. Like thinking of the positives, first would be obviously the debt you save.
Yep.
And then I think just like time and energy. I think one thing I would say, if you're not going to go to college, like you have to answer the why. I think it's really important.
You do really have to.
We're saying like, what do you do if you don't go? There's countless things we can name, but I think we should talk about a little bit is like, if you're not going to go, like, why is the reason? It has to be more than I don't like school. I think that's for me what I heard the most when I was graduating was most of the people that didn't go was because they didn't like school, and I didn't want to be like seen as one of those, which might sound weird, but because I always enjoyed school. But if you like school and you're good at it, doesn't mean you have to go to college. And so identify the why. So is that because you have a great idea for a company you want to start, or you have a trade you're going to do, or identify the why. Why are you not going to go to school?
Yeah, totally. Because, well, like we've been talking about, just because in the same way that a lot of people go to college by default without asking that question, that doesn't mean that you're off the hook because you're not going to college. You do need to answer that question for sure. You need to have good reasons. And if you don't have any idea, start figuring that out, right, and take the steps.
One thing I want to say was think long term with that question, because I think it's easy like to graduate college as a man, especially get a nice construction job making $20 an hour, $30 an hour, which is great at that time. But like, how long do you want to be doing that for? You got to be prepared. I mean, the majority of your life to be working with your hands and
for the rest of your life.
Yeah, and so that's what that means. Now, that doesn't mean if you when you're 18 years old, if you don't go to college, that you're stuck. Like, you can always go back later, or like you can develop skills, especially like nowadays. You can develop skills to get yourself in hopefully another career direction and get you out of that arena if you don't want to be in it anymore. But think long term. I think it's easy to think, I'm 18, I'm young, I don't want to spend more time in a classroom, and let's go get outside and work and make money. But you got to think longer term than that.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's a great point. Like, you need to think. I think it's easy to think, if I'm not going to college, what am I going to do for the next 4 years? But really, you need to be thinking, what am I trying to prepare myself to do for the rest of my life? And that's a question that a lot of people don't ask. But so I'm going to just kind of riff a couple ideas for myself. If I didn't go to college, what I definitely would have done is interned at a lot of places, because, again, these are huge questions that you're trying to answer at such a young age. And the best thing that you can do is test and try as many things that you can do as fast as possible. So do 2-3 month internships at businesses that interest you. Work for free or work paid, it doesn't really matter. But I think the important part is you want to figure out what it is that you like and what it is that you're good at as quick as possible.
Yeah.
because you don't want to do an internship and then work your way up, get a full-time job, and something that you don't like, right? If you don't have the constraints of college and kind of racking up debt to get this degree and this career, like, then be smart, try out a bunch of things. You have the freedom to, so take advantage of that. Intern, start a side project for sure. Just start working. But there's also a lot of alternative ways. So we talked about kind of, there's trade schools. There's also other like programs. There's things that you can test into that are sort of like mini degrees or licenses or licenses, certificates that you can get. That was a tough one.
You guys should have seen his face. He was like
so confused for a second.
That's funny.
But there's a lot of different schools or even just alternative routes than college. And I would encourage people just to look into that. You don't just have to jump into working. You can also do other educational kind of programs. Yeah. And then a couple of those programs I would say, I just wanted to mention, so one really cool one, shout out to Austin Alford, the founder, but there's a school that's been blown up on Twitter. It's called Lambda School. So it's LAMBDA school.com. You can find them. But basically, they're a software engineering kind of boot camp, if you will, completely remote and online. And what they do is that it's completely free until you get a job. So they're 100% incentivized to get you a job, because once you do get a job that pays over $50,000 a year, then they have basically like a payment plan. So for the next 2 or 3 years, you pay a percentage of your salary up to, I think it's $20,000, I want to say. So you go through the boot camp, they get you a job, and then you pay back what you owe them, essentially.
That's a really cool idea.
So it's a really neat system.
Yeah.
They just started, so there's a lot of kind of tweaks and flaws, and they're figuring a lot of stuff out, but they're having insane success.
Yeah, that's cool.
And again, they're completely aligned to your end goal, which is to get a great job and something that you want to do. Another awesome one is called Praxis, Praxis, and I think it's discoverpraxis.com. But basically, they allow you, they put you through a short boot camp, and then they hook you up with an internship at a startup, and you can do many different internships, and then they facilitate the whole process of getting a job at an internship. And then from the internship, you pay back. So it's basically it's free, and then you pay back what you make in the internship, and then they facilitate the process of getting a job. But in that kind of role, you learn all about yourself, personal branding, a lot of business skills, a lot of personal skills, and then they allow you to test out what you want to do and find you a job at the end. So those are just a couple I wanted to shout out. But I'll end with this. This is something that's kind of helped me in my journey a little bit. But I once heard, the thing that you do that distracts you from the thing that you should be doing is probably the thing that you should actually be doing. So if you're in college, if you're out of college, think about the things that you're passionate about, that you're interested in, the companies that you like and you follow, the people that you like and you follow, and then look into that. Follow your curiosity and explore that, because the faster you can find what you want to do, the better. All right, Jerry Swag, take us out.
All right. I love it. All right, guys. Well, thank you for listening. Don't turn us off yet. Don't skip. But if you liked what you heard, please go ahead and give us a 6-star review. No less, no more, but 6 stars. Any thoughts, Corey?
Subscribe. Follow us on IG.
Yes. If you have any questions, you can email us. You can reach out on Instagram, IG, Facebook, Twitter. Other than that, until next time. Peace and love.